My true story from New Mexico. I waited all day in my birthday dress, then the doorbell rang at midnight. They say, family always comes through in the end, but sometimes, family is the very storm you spend a lifetime surviving. I'm Marlene Gutierrez, born in 1955 in the heart of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Back in March, just a week before my 70th birthday, I spent days baking, setting the table and calling every one of my children and grandkids to remind them. I felt confident, hopeful, and proud, but then something happened. Today, at 70, sitting in a quiet living room in Las Cruces, I'm finally sharing this, because no woman should wait a lifetime for the love she deserves. If you're listening, drop your city below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. I'd been prepping for weeks. I don't just mean cleaning the house, I mean hand-washing the floral curtains, soaking silverware that hadn't seen daylight since my 60th, and reheating stories I thought they'd all want to hear again. Every detail mattered. My son Isaac was supposed to bring the folding chairs. Mia, my eldest, promised she'd handle the cake. She always liked being in charge of dessert, even when she'd complain afterward that I was too picky. But I wasn't picky. I just wanted this one day to matter. The dining table had 12 place settings, 8 for the family, 4 for neighbors I'd always welcomed like kin. My best friend Dorothy helped me pin up balloons around the porch that morning, even though her arthritis was acting up. I remember she laughed, "You know, Marlene, you sure throw a party like someone expecting Oprah to show up." We both laughed. I told her, "No, I just want my kids to feel like this house still means something." By noon, the roast had been turned twice. By 2 p.m., the mashed potatoes were already getting cold. At 3 p.m., I checked my phone for missed calls. Nothing. Just silence. I sent a text to Mia. "Just checking in, sweetheart. Everything okay?" No reply. Then to Isaac. "You still bringing the chairs? Let me know if you need help." Still nothing. Dorothy stayed until 4, but I saw the way she looked at me. Like someone trying not to watch a candle burn out. "You sure they're coming, hon?" she asked quietly, standing in the hallway like she didn't want to dirty the living room with pity. "They promised. All 3 of them. Even little Danny said he was gonna show me his new song on the guitar." She touched my hand, said she'd leave the casserole she brought just in case, and gently walked out into the golden desert light. That was the last warm moment of that day. I sat in the armchair by the window, watching every car that passed. I'd even ironed my best dress, the one with the soft green ruffles that reminded me of when I first met Carlos, God rest him. I wore his mother's brooch, the one he always said made me look elegant, but dangerous. But no one came. By sunset, I stood outside and took down the crepe paper banners. They fluttered like ghosts in the breeze, refusing to fall gracefully. Then I opened the fridge and saw all the food untouched. Pork roast, potato salad, banana pudding. My birthday cake sat in the middle of the top shelf, perfect white frosting with Happy 70th, Mama, in bright pink letters. I hadn't made that cake. Mia had ordered it last year and forgotten to cancel the recurring order from the bakery. I paid for it myself when I picked it up. I cut a slice, just to feel something. At 9:15 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. It was a group text. "Isaac, hey, sorry guys. I just assumed Mom knew we weren't doing anything big this year. Mia said we'd all agreed. Didn't we tell her?" "Mia, wait. I thought you were picking her up. Lena, you both told me you had it covered. I have no sitter anyway. Didn't think we were still doing birthdays." I stood there, blinking at that screen. Still doing birthdays? Still doing me? That night, I sat in a silent kitchen in my birthday dress. One earring missing, I don't even know when I lost it. And I felt something crack. It wasn't the kind of heartbreak that brings tears. It was the dull, sharp realization that the people you raise can unraise you right back. Quietly, gently, without screaming or slamming doors. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat by the living room lamp, watching the hands of the clock move like they were ashamed to keep going. Then, at exactly 12:03 a.m., there was a knock at the door. One knock. I froze. My heart raced. My first thought wasn't hope, it was fear. Because the only people who knock at midnight in Las Cruces either need help or plan to hurt you. I approached slowly, turned the porch light on, and peeked through the side curtain. It wasn't Mia. It wasn't Isaac. It was a girl young, probably in her early 20s, with streaked hair and a denim jacket 2 sizes too big. Her arms were full of something. I opened the door a crack. "Hi," she said, sheepishly. "Are you Marlene Gutierrez?" "I am," I replied, more confused than cautious. "I was told to give you this. My uncle said you'd know what it meant." She handed me a shoebox. An old, worn, taped-up thing. Inside was a stack of letters, a faded envelope marked "Do not open unless she's alone," and a Polaroid of my late husband, Carlos, dated 1991. She didn't wait for me to ask more questions. She just said, "He made me promise." And then she walked back into the darkness. I stood in the doorway, trembling not from fear, but from the feeling that something had been waiting for me longer than I'd realized. I closed the door behind me, turned the deadbolt, and held the shoebox like it was burning through my hands. Whatever was inside, it had waited. Just like me. I didn't open the box that night. I wanted to, I really did. But something about that girl's eyes, the way she didn't look back after handing it over, it made me feel like I was holding more than just paper. It felt like I was holding a match over dry grass. So I placed the shoebox on the kitchen table, still surrounded by plates no one used and chairs no one sat in. Then I went back to the armchair, lit a candle, and stared at Carlos' photo for the first time in years. The next morning, I made my coffee the usual way, black, 1 sugar. Same chipped mug with the sunflower design. I lit a stick of cinnamon incense and opened the curtains wide. The Las Cruces sun doesn't care how your birthday went. It rises bright and loud like a mariachi in your window. I respect that kind of disrespect. I finally sat at the table and opened the box. At the top was a letter addressed in Carlos' handwriting. For Marlene, in case I couldn't say it myself. The date in the corner read April 1997. The year he died. I had to breathe a few times before I unfolded it. His handwriting hit me in the chest, looped, proud, almost cocky, like the man himself. Marlene. If you're reading this, I didn't get to tell you everything. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I ran out of time. Maybe I was just selfish. But what I'm about to tell you might change how you look at our life. It might also explain the coldness you've felt from the kids. If they've started pulling away, I promise, it's not all your fault. I stopped right there. My stomach clenched. He knew. 28 years ago, and he knew this day would come. I kept reading. After we lost that second baby before Mia, I did something I never told you about. I was angry. Confused. I went back to Santa Fe to stay with my cousin Joel for a few weeks. You thought it was work. It wasn't. While I was there, I met someone. Her name was Elvira. She was kind, younger, and she made me feel like I wasn't failing. I didn't love her the way I love you, but I slept with her. Once. The room shrank. She got pregnant, Marlene. I didn't believe her at first. But then I saw the boy. He looked just like my father. I paid her under the table for years to stay quiet, used old casino contacts, paid in cash so nothing could trace back. Mia and Isaac found out after I died. They were going through my shed, trying to clean out Dad's junk, and they found old letters from Elvira and some payment receipts. That explained it. All these years, the way they started treating me like some kind of antique, polished, ignored, forgotten in the corner. They must have thought I knew and stayed. Like I'd been complicit in my own humiliation. But I hadn't known. Not a clue. Then I remembered something strange. About 6 years ago, Mia stopped letting her son Danny come stay with me for weekends. Said he was too old. He was 9. It wasn't about his age. It was about her shame. I'm not proud of what I did, but I never stopped loving you. And I never told you because I didn't want our marriage to become a graveyard of blame. If the kids turned their hearts cold, it's because they thought you forgave me when you shouldn't have. You didn't forgive me, Marlene. You never even knew. I held the letter to my chest and wept into the brooch on my dress. The truth hurt less than the assumption. For all these years, my children looked at me like I was weak, when I'd just been kept in the dark. The rest of the box held more letters from Elvira, receipts from Carlos, a birth certificate for a boy named Samuel Ortiz, born 1982. That would make him 43 now. There was a photograph, too. A birthday party, paper hats, Elvira in the corner, holding a little boy with Carlos cheekbones and my husband's crooked smile. There was no denying it. I laid the photo beside the box and whispered, "You were mine too," even if I didn't know it. But what hit hardest was what lay at the bottom, a newspaper clipping from 2014. It was folded carefully, worn at the creases. Headline read, "Local Youth Center saved by anonymous donor director Samuel Ortiz, says it's all for the forgotten kids." That name. That face. My God. The girl from last night. She looked just like him. Suddenly I saw the knock at midnight differently. It wasn't random. She was his daughter. My granddaughter. And she had come, when no one else did. That evening, I stood on the porch again. No balloons, no cake. Just the slow breath of desert air. I called Mia first. She didn't pick up. I left a voicemail. "Mia, I know about Samuel. I know what Dad did. I know what you found. But I didn't know. Not until last night. And I don't deserve the punishment you gave me for a crime I never committed. You should have asked me. Instead, you erased me." Then I called Isaac. Told him the same. No one replied. But that night, at exactly 11:45 p.m., my porch light flickered on. I peeked out. The same girl stood there again, holding a manila envelope this time. This time, I invited her in. She sat at my kitchen table, ran her fingers over the lace doily, and said softly, "He always said you were his compass." Tears welled in my eyes. "I never got to be one," I whispered. She slid the envelope toward me. "He wants to meet you. If you're ready." Inside was a bus ticket. Las Cruces to Albuquerque. Sunday morning. 3 days from now. I stared at it. And I smiled for the first time in a long while. I didn't sleep the night after she gave me the ticket. I just sat at the kitchen table, rereading Carlos's letter until the ink lines blurred. My hands shook, but not from age, no. I was shaking from something deeper. Grief, yes, but also an ache that reached across decades, rewinding every moment I'd stood beside my children, thinking we were still stitched together. And yet, I had a grandson, Samuel Ortiz, 43 years old, a youth center director, The product of betrayal, yes, but also something good, someone good. And I was about to meet him. By the time Sunday came, I was up before the alarm. I wore a deep burgundy shawl, the one Carlos gave me on our 20th anniversary, and tied my hair in a soft bun, pinned with the same comb I wore the day we renewed our vows. I carried nothing but a purse, Carlos's letter, and that manila envelope. At the Las Cruces station, the wind was dry and cutting. The woman behind the ticket window smiled as she handed me the pass. "Going to Albuquerque?" she asked. I nodded. "Family." I paused, then said, hopefully. The bus ride was quiet. I watched the horizon stretch into bone-colored hills, the desert rolling like secrets beneath the sky. I kept wondering what I would say when I saw him. Would I apologize? Would I cry? Would he want to hear anything at all? When I arrived at the downtown station in Albuquerque, she was waiting, Lena, the girl who knocked on my door at midnight. She was in a blue denim jacket again, this time with a sunflower pin that caught the light. She waved me over. "He's waiting," she said. We took a cab through the older part of the city, passing murals of saints and barrio poets. The car turned onto a long road lined with cypress trees. At the end sat a weathered adobe building with hand-painted tiles that read, "The Sunroom, a place for the forgotten." She led me inside. There were kids playing board games, women sorting canned food, and teenagers reading to toddlers in the corner. It felt warm, not the kind of warmth you get from heat, but from being wanted. Then I saw him. Samuel. He was standing in a hallway, arms crossed, talking to a social worker. When he turned and saw me, he didn't smile, not right away. He just studied me. Like he was trying to match the pieces of a puzzle he'd never had all the parts for. I walked toward him slowly. My voice cracked when I said, "You look just like your father." He exhaled, almost like he'd been holding his breath since he was born. "You look like the woman in the photo he kept in his wallet." My knees nearly buckled. He led me into a small office in the back. There was a wooden desk, shelves filled with children's drawings, and a kettle steaming softly on a hot plate. He poured me tea before I could ask. "I didn't expect your daughter to reply to my messages," he said. "But I hoped you might come." "I didn't know you existed until a few nights ago," I whispered. "I would have come sooner. I would have tried." He nodded. "My mom never wanted to reach out. Said it would only bring pain. Said Carlos made a promise to protect your life from the mess he made." "Did he ever talk about me?" I asked. "All the time," Samuel said. "Called you his better half with the braver heart. Said you taught him how to forgive." I swallowed a knot in my throat. "I never forgave him, Samuel," I said quietly, "because I didn't know what I was supposed to forgive. And once he was gone, the silence just became routine." He nodded. "I didn't bring you here to reopen wounds." "Then why?" I asked. He pulled out a worn notebook, Carlos's handwriting again. Pages of thoughts, dated between 1985 and 1995. "Saw Samuel take his first steps today." Elvira cried. "I thought about Marlene the whole drive back to Santa Fe. Danny plays piano now. Reminds me of Isaac. If only he could meet them both one day. I know Mia and Lena will never understand what I've done. But I hope one day Marlene will forgive me enough to explain it to them." Samuel placed the journal in my lap. "He wanted you to have this," he said. "But I also wanted you to read it first, because you deserve to hear the truth from him. Not from them. Not secondhand." I read every word over the next 2 hours while Samuel worked nearby. The entries painted a man I'd loved deeply and never fully known. A man riddled with guilt, yes, but also full of longing and hope that somehow, someway, the damage wouldn't last forever. When I closed the journal, I looked at Samuel and asked, "Do you think I can still be family to you?" He leaned back, arms folded. "That depends. Do you like Sunday potlucks?" I laughed. For the first time in months, I laughed like someone who remembered joy. That evening, he took me to his home, a small, but warm bungalow on the north side. There were framed photos of the youth center, Lena as a child, and even one picture of Carlos holding a baby. We sat on his porch under string lights. He told me about growing up knowing of Carlos, but never with him. How he used to sneak into the garage as a teen to read the letters Carlos left behind. How he always wondered who Marlene was, and why she sounded so full of love. "I thought maybe you were made up," he said. "A fairy tale to cover the shame." I shook my head. "I'm real. And so is the hurt. But so is the healing." We toasted with sweet tea. But then, as I leaned back in the chair, my phone buzzed. A message from Mia. "We need to talk." 4 words. No apology. No warmth. Samuel must have seen my face. "Let me guess," he said. "They're realizing what they lost." I nodded. "Don't go running back to them too quickly," he warned. "People who can forget you once, can do it again. Make sure they've earned the right to speak." His voice wasn't angry, just wise. Wiser than any 43-year-old had the right to be. That night, I slept in the guest room with the journal beside me and peace under my skin. I'd spent my whole life being someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's memory. Now I was becoming someone new. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I sat on Samuel's porch with a cup of coffee and a notebook in my lap. It wasn't even 7 a.m., but the street was already humming, neighbors walking dogs, kids on bikes, wind chimes catching the breeze. The kind of quiet noise that feels like a pulse. And for the first time in a long time, I had the energy to write. Not about grief. Not about betrayal. But about what comes next. I drew a rough list of names, not of my children or grandchildren. No, these names were different. Names I hadn't thought about in years. Velma, the woman from church who lost her daughter in a car crash. Tomas, the handyman who ate lunch alone in his truck every day. Eva, who used to braid her hair into ribbons and bring tamales to every community potluck even though she never got an invite. I wrote their names one by one, and next to each, a simple note. Invite. Because somewhere along the way, I'd spent too much time chasing the people who didn't want to be in my life, and not nearly enough nourishing the ones who might. That afternoon, Samuel drove me to the bus station, but I didn't go back to Las Cruces right away. We made a stop at a little print shop. I handed the young woman behind the counter a flash drive and said, "I need 20 of these printed. Glossy. Big font. And can you add sunflowers in the corner?" The flyer was simple. Sunday dinner at Marlene's. No RSVP. Just bring a chair and your heart. 4 p.m. sharp. Everyone welcome. Address, my home. Let's celebrate the ones who show up. That night, I took the late bus back to Las Cruces, the box of printed flyers on my lap. When I stepped through my front door, I didn't even flinch at the silence. It wasn't heavy anymore, it just meant space for something better. I spent the next 3 days visiting people. Velma lived in a trailer off the service road. She opened her door in a housecoat and curlers. "Marlene Gutierrez," she said. "Ain't seen you in 10 years. I'm still here," I smiled. "And I've got a roast cooking this Sunday." She blinked at the flyer. "This for real? As real as you and me?" Tomas didn't say much, just stared at the flyer, then nodded and folded it into his jacket like it was a golden ticket. Eva hugged me without asking permission. By Friday, the flyers had traveled further than I expected. The post office lady asked me, "You the one throwing the open dinner?" I nodded. She smiled and said, "Might stop by with my sister. She don't get out much since her stroke." That Sunday morning, I cooked like I hadn't cooked in years. 2 pork roasts, cornbread, a whole tray of stuffed green chili, peach cobbler bubbling in the oven. I dusted off my mother's big ceramic punch bowl and filled it with hibiscus tea and citrus slices. At 3:30 p.m., I set the table outside on the front lawn. By 4:10, I had 12 people seated. By 4:20, they were pulling up in old trucks, worn-out sedans, and on foot. Some came with casseroles, others with guitars. One man, Alfredo, brought a karaoke machine he insisted might wake up the dead. Laughter filled the space like perfume. No one asked me why I invited them. They just showed up. And I'll tell you something I'll never forget. Not one person looked at their phone. Not one person asked where my real family was. And not one person hesitated when I said, "You're not just guests. You're part of something now." We sat under the open sky, eating, talking, even dancing a little. Velma brought out her old harmonica. Tomas told a story so funny I nearly dropped my sweet tea. A young couple I didn't recognize said, "We saw your flyer on a telephone pole. Thought we'd come." Even Lena came back. She brought cupcakes. "I figured you needed dessert," she said with a wink. I stood at the head of the table as the sun dipped low and said, "All my life, I've been waiting for people who already decided they didn't see me. And I've let them define my worth in their absence. But today, right now, you all rewrote my story." People clapped. And then, just as the sky turned that deep pink you only get in the desert, a car pulled up. I didn't recognize it at first. Then Mia stepped out. She wasn't alone. Isaac and Lena, the other Lena, my daughter, followed behind her like children trying to avoid a belt. Their faces were stiff, like they couldn't decide between guilt and entitlement. "Mama," Mia said cautiously, "we didn't know you were doing this." "That's the thing," I replied, folding my arms. "You haven't known anything about my life in years. You just assumed I'd wait forever." Lena tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "You all had your chance. Last week was your moment. This," I gestured to the people laughing behind me, "this is something new. You can't just show up when the table's already full." Isaac looked around. "Who are these people?" "Neighbors," I said. "Strangers. Souls who don't vanish when love gets inconvenient." Mia's voice was tight. "You're still our mother." I said gently. "But you've spent a decade treating me like a relic. I had to become someone else to survive it." Then I turned around and walked back to my table. Lena tried calling out, but Velma, bless her brave little heart, said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You heard her." The party already started. People clapped again, real, slow claps full of truth. And when I sat back down, Eva passed me the peach cobbler. "You did good, Marlene," she said. "I did something," I replied. That night, as the stars bloomed over Las Cruces, I finally felt full, and not from food. From presence. From choosing myself. From letting the wrong people miss me. It's strange how quickly a soul can shift once you stop waiting to be chosen. The Monday after that dinner, I woke up to a sunlit kitchen that still smelled like peach cobbler and chiles, and I didn't feel lonely. I felt rooted. I had handwritten thank you notes drying beside the sink. 2 casseroles cooling in the fridge that guests insisted I save for later. And a voicemail from Eva already asking if we were doing this again next Sunday. It turns out, when you open your home to people who need a seat at the table, They come hungry not just for food, but for belonging. By the end of the week, I had received 6 more phone calls, 3 hand-delivered cards, and 1 bouquet of sunflowers from Tomas' daughter. "He hasn't smiled like that in years," she wrote. "You gave him a reason to." And just like that, the house started feeling alive again. Not haunted by missing voices or empty chairs. Alive with something new. Something earned. Then came Thursday night. I was sitting on my front porch again, sipping cinnamon tea under the fading glow of the porch light, when I saw headlights pull into the driveway. Not fast or urgent, just slow, deliberate, almost ashamed. It was Mia's car. I didn't stand up. I didn't hide either. I just watched. She stepped out first, holding a small bouquet of lilies. Isaac followed, hands in his pockets. Lena was last, sunglasses on though the sun had long dipped behind the hills. They stood at the edge of the walkway like they didn't know if they were welcome. "Mama," Mia called out. I didn't answer. She stepped forward and gently placed the lilies on the porch rail. We talked. All 3 of us. And we realized we've been distant. Isaac cleared his throat. "We were wrong. Not just missing your birthday. Everything. The way we assumed things." Lena's voice cracked. "We didn't know about Samuel. Because you never asked," I finally said. They looked at one another, the way guilty children do when caught red-handed. "You're right," Mia said, voice softer. "But we want to make it right." Now, if this had been a movie, this is where I'd leap into their arms, cry, and forgive everything. But this wasn't a movie. This was my life. And my life had layers of silence, years of neglect, and birthdays spent alone. So I took a deep breath and said, "I'm glad you're here. I truly am. But showing up once doesn't erase years of absence." "Mama." "No," I interrupted gently. "Let me speak." They froze. I spent too long thinking love meant waiting. That if I was patient enough, good enough, quiet enough, eventually I'd matter again. But love isn't waiting rooms and unanswered messages. Love shows up. I stood slowly, stepping off the porch and walking past them to my mailbox. I pulled out 3 envelopes stamped, addressed, already written. 1 for each of them. I handed them over. "I wrote these before you arrived. Just in case. They explain everything. How your father's past shaped your anger. How his silence became mine. And how I'm not carrying either anymore." Mia looked down at the letter in her hands, trembling slightly. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I don't owe you my peace either. That belongs to me now." Isaac finally looked up. "So, what now?" I gave a small smile. "Now you choose. If you want to earn your way back into my life, there's an open dinner this Sunday. Everyone's welcome. But you'll sit with the rest, no special treatment. No skipping the line." Lena looked confused. "Dinner? With strangers? With people who've never let me feel invisible?" They said nothing. I turned and walked back toward the house, heart steady. "Mama, wait," Mia called after me. I paused but didn't look back. "Do you still love us?" "I always have," I said. "But I love myself more now." And with that, I stepped inside and closed the door softly, not with anger, but with the quiet dignity of a woman reclaiming the final years of her life. That Sunday, more people came. Velma brought her granddaughter. Eva sang a hymn she hadn't sung since her husband's funeral. Tomas led a prayer before dinner, his hands shaking but his voice strong. And yes, Samuel and Lena were there too. He brought books for the kids and made jokes about how my porch was more popular than the community center now. Lena brought a Polaroid camera, took pictures of everyone eating, laughing, being seen. The best part? At 4:15 p.m., 3 folding chairs sat empty on the far side of the yard. By 5 o'clock, they were gone. No one asked where they went. I didn't offer an answer, because some chairs stay empty for a reason. As twilight fell, I stood to make a toast. To the ones who showed up, I said. To the ones who made space when they didn't have to. To those who taught me that love isn't inherited, it's chosen. Glasses clinked. Smiles bloomed. In that moment, I wasn't someone's mother. I was Marlene. I was whole. I was home. And here's what I want you to take with you. Not everyone who shares your blood shares your heart. Sometimes, your true family finds you after you've stopped looking. And the table you set for yourself when it's full of honesty, laughter, and people who see you. That's where healing begins. That's where you begin again. So like this video, subscribe for more true stories, and share it with someone who needs to stop waiting to be loved. And in the comments, tell me, who would you invite to your front porch?